Hello, hello, my bookish friends. My name is Alex, and thank you for coming by my channel. Today, I am going to be talking to you about the 7 books that I read in the month of November. So this month was kind of an interesting reading month for me. I kind of felt slumpy, but maybe it was just the holidays and busyness. It was a crazy month with Thanksgiving and all the things going on, so I didn't get as much reading done as I would have liked towards the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month I was like binging audiobooks. So this is just gonna be an interesting one. Let's get into it. Let's chat about these 7 books, and I'll tell you everything that I read this month. The first thing that I read this month is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I will not go into crazy detail about this one because I did do a reading vlog about this book and annotating for the first time, which it really doesn't look like I did that much, but I do have an entire little stormy weekend reading vlog talking about this book and all of my thoughts as I went through it, so I won't linger on this one too long. But this is a contemporary dark academia mystery thriller novel, and this book follows a group of theater students as they are studying the Shakespearean tragedies in their last year at their school and simultaneously living out their own tragedy story as well. We meet our main character Oliver as he is being released from prison after 10 years and kind of follow him back in time as he finally tells the story of what really happened with him and his group of 7 friends all that time ago. So like I said, you can see my full thoughts in that reading vlog, but I really had a blast with this book. I thought the writing was absolutely incredible. M.L. Rio just has such great insight into human nature, into relationships and friendships, and I really enjoyed the relationships aspect of this story. The mystery was not 100% doing it for me. That was kind of my only complaint. But I absolutely ate this up and really loved it. Highly recommend If We Were Villains. This was such a wonderful read, and I will pick up anything M.L. Rio writes next because the writing was just impeccable. Next, I did an audiobook reread of Forestborn by Elaine Audrey Becker. Again, I will try not to talk too long about this one because I have talked your ear off about this book. It is one of my absolute favorites, and I needed to do a reread because the sequel, Wildbound, recently came out, and I am really hoping to read that soon, but it has been a minute since I read the first one. I read it as an ARC in 2020, and so I knew that I needed a quick refresher, and oh my gosh, please, can books have that thing like Netflix shows where it's like last season on blah 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 and then it gives you a recap of everything that happened? I need that to happen in book sequels because oh my gosh, even for a book that was one of my absolute favorites, there were so many things I forgot, so many things I didn't remember. I feel like as soon as I finish a book, everything just poofs out of my brain. I cannot remember plots and things for the life of me, so I really needed this reread. There were so many things I had forgotten. But again, Forestborn is a young adult fantasy novel. It is one of my absolute favorites. Forestborn is a young adult fantasy novel about a kingdom plagued by a magical illness and a quest into a sentient forest to find the only hope for a cure, which is stardust. And I won't go too much deeper into it. I could talk for hours, but I have given the synopsis of this book in a couple of other videos, so you can check those out if you are interested in hearing more about why I absolutely adore this book. And 5 out of 5 stars again for the reread. The audiobook was also fantastic. Next, I listened to the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I was definitely in a murder mystery mood after reading If We Were Villains, so I wanted to keep with that vibe and ended up picking up the Thursday Murder Club, which I am so glad I did. Oh my gosh, you guys, this book is hysterical. So we follow a group of septuagenarians who love to meet up every Thursday to discuss and investigate unsolved murder cases. However, when a murder takes place that is closely related to their retirement village that they all live in, they end up getting sucked into the investigation and might even become suspects themselves. This was another one where I just absolutely loved the characters. Each one felt so unique, so distinct, and so real, even though they were kind of caricatures. They were funny, but they still felt so real. I just absolutely adored them. It was such a fun time getting to know each of their different personalities and following along as they tried to figure out who this murderer was, what was going on. I just had an absolute blast listening to this one on audiobook. I will for sure be continuing on with the series. I laughed so much throughout this book. However, I will say that at the end of this book, we did get into some much heavier, darker topics that I was not fully expecting. So if you are someone who wants to know about trigger warnings before diving into a book, I do recommend looking those up before you get into this one. I don't want to talk about them here because I don't want to give spoilers. It is towards the end of the book, but just a warning that it does get quite a bit heavier towards the end. So please look into that if that is something that concerns you. After the Thursday Murder Club, I was super excited to get approved for the audiobook ALC from NetGalley of Saint by Adrienne Young. I am a huge Adrienne Young fan. If you have watched any of my videos, you probably know that. So Saint is the newest novel in the Fable series. It is a prequel that follows one of the beloved characters from the Fable duology. And I was so excited to dive back into this world. I don't have my physical copy here with you, but I did pre-order it. I do own this book as well. And I was super excited to get to listen to it a couple of days before it came out. The audiobook was done really well. I highly recommend that if you are a fan of audiobooks. And this one is pretty short, so a super quick listen. The Fable series takes place in a seafaring world called the Narrows, and it is based around sea trade and the various trading guilds that are in this area. The original book, Fable, follows a young girl who was abandoned on an island by her father at a very young age and has been trying for years to work her way off of this island to find her father and prove herself to him and become a part of his crew. So I don't want to get too much into what Saint is actually about. If you have not read the series, you can start with Saint if you would like to, but I highly recommend reading these books in publishing order for the maximum impact of Saint. I will just say that this book is kind of an origin story of one of the characters from Fable, and it is also kind of an origin story of one of the guilds in the Narrows as well. I absolutely loved this one. It was like a warm hug for the readers who have been following along with this series from Adrienne Young. It was just kind of her love letter to her readers and to the people who love this series, which was so sweet and so fun to read. However, I really wanted more out of it. I wish this book was longer. I wish it took place over a longer period of time and we got a larger snapshot of this character's life. The flow and the pace and speed of it did keep with the theme of the rest of the series, so it did fit in that way. But just as someone who's been loving this series so much, I was really wanting like more from this. And I did feel that the romance was a little insta-lovey, which is not my favorite. I would have loved more of a slow burn, drawn out story personally. However, it was still such a great read. You have all of those staple Adrienne Young qualities to it. We have some really interesting, morally great characters. We have the beautiful atmospheric writing, and it was such a fun time. I definitely highly recommend this series if you are a fan of young adult fantasy, of really beautiful atmosphere and world building. This is a really fun one. And I will keep my fingers crossed for a sequel, and that will get a little bit more of that longer time period through another book following Saint. The next physical book that I read was Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck. You guys, this was the witchy rom-com of my dreams. After reading the X-Hex last year and not really loving it, I was definitely on the hunt for a witchy romance that would be more my speed, and this was certainly the one. This was honestly the perfect recipe for me, with a strong heroine, a small town with Stars Hollow vibes, and a closed door friends to lovers romance. Those are just honestly the ingredients of a perfect romance that I'm going to absolutely love and eat up. In this book, we follow Emerson Wilde, a bookstore owner and Chamber of Commerce president in the small town of St. Cyprian. After being inexplicably attacked by paranormal creatures, possibly set on her by her arch rival, the small town mayor, Skip Simon, she discovers that she is actually a witch, and she might be the only one with the powers to save her small town from the evil forces that are arising. This is such a fun read. I really loved the found family elements. I really enjoyed the romance aspect, the magic. This just had me laughing. I really enjoyed the town, the characters. this was the perfect romance for me. If you are similar and enjoy a romance that is going to make you laugh, if you enjoy a closed door romance, there's not a lot of spice in this one. This might be a great one for you to pick up. If you want to see just how much this book had me smiling and laughing, you can check out my try a chapter video where I read the first chapter of this book and talked a little bit about how it was making me feel already at the beginning. I got those warm, cozy Stars Hollow vibes from it for sure. And I cannot wait to continue on with this series when the next book comes out. So for the majority of the month, those are the books that I read, those 5 books. It took me longer than normal, I would say, to read. And then for whatever reason, on the very last day of the month, I decided to start binging audiobooks and ended up getting through 2 audiobooks in one day. I think having read this book, I finished it by doing immersive reading, which I had seen recommended as a way to kind of pull yourself out of that holiday reading slump from my friend The Book Script on Instagram. Lauren made a reel kind of recommending immersive reading, which is where you listen to the audiobook and read the physical book at the same time. I did that to finish up this book, and I think that kind of helped break my reading slump and ended up being why I plowed through 2 audiobooks the following day. So the first of the 2 that I read is Legends and Lattes. This is a charming, adorable, cozy fantasy novel about an orc who decides to lay down her weapons and open up a coffee shop in a small town where they have never heard of coffee before. This one was definitely adorable and a very quick read. However, I feel that I probably wasn't paying all that much attention to it when I was listening to it. I think I might have been a little bit distracted and missed some of what was going on. I thought it was all right. I thought it was cozy and comforting and nice, but I'm not totally obsessed with it. And I know this one has gotten super wonderful reviews, so I'm thinking that was probably a me problem. I probably just wasn't paying enough attention to kind of get everything that was going on in this one. Later that same day, I listened to Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. This one was a completely different situation for me. I was paying rapt attention. I was really hooked and interested in this one. Being a lifelong Harry Potter fan was definitely part of that. Tom Felton's self-narrated audiobook was such a treat for me to listen to. I'm not someone who keeps up with celebrities all that much, so everything in this was pretty new to me. Everything were stories that I had never heard before. I had such a fun time with the anecdotes that he shared about his early life, his early career, and his time filming on the Harry Potter set. This book does take a turn for the more serious towards the end as he talks about mental health struggles and substance abuse. And I did feel that this ending portion of the book could have been stretched out more. There could have been more meat to it and more of a message given. There was a little bit of one, but I feel that that could have been fleshed out a little bit further to give more impact to the reader. Overall, I super enjoyed the reading experience, especially the first 2/3 of the book. I just was laughing. I had such a great time. And if you are a fan of Harry Potter, I definitely think this is a fun one. I highly recommend the audiobook though, because it is narrated by Tom Felton himself. And I think that that really added to the reading experience for me. It might have been a really different one had I just read the physical book. So I definitely think that if you want to pick this one up, the audiobook is the way to go. So that is it for this video. Those are the 7 books that I read in the month of November. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have read any of these, let me know in the comments below which ones and what you thought of them. And if you haven't, let me know if any of them sound interesting to you, if you think you might pick any up after watching this video. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I am super excited to talk to you in my next video. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would be so honored if you did so and gave this video a like if you enjoyed it. That is all I have for you, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, friends.